super important message about manifestation at a time like this. The energy is just so fast and head spinning, but time and space in our sensation of this fast moving energy, but we're also feeling sluggish and many people are feeling sick, and there's a lot of hardship collectively right now and individually, and it's a lot. Most people are feeling it, and it doesn't have to do with global stuff. Yes, it does in part, but I mean in individual people circumstances, it's so profound what people are dealing with in the realm of personal struggles and things that happen when no one else notices, and all of the stuff that everybody's dealing with. And it's important to remember that the future is collectively manifested out of the contents of every individual's mind, but a lot of people aren't used to this process. And on top of that, when we see this taffy pull of energy moving at warp speed to facilitate this kind of great unfolding that's happening, it's like you actually have the potential to think of an exponential growth equation graph, like just going straight vertical steepness. Like the amount that we can manifest, like there's this level that it does not do you any good to be so invested in things like, think of, I don't know, the classic or cliche manifestation techniques, vision boarding and affirmations and predictive journaling and all of that. I'm not saying there's nothing to it. I do all of that. I love it. It's very important. But what I'm saying is that when we do that and then we just kind of like marinate in all of that, even if it's very, very positive, it's still a form of attachment in the sense that there's this, back to the graph, this exponential ability for us to not only, like a lot is happening very quickly collectively. A lot is happening very quickly personally. It's speeding up in tandem. And so we're realizing, or we must realize or remember and rethink and understand that with every single thing that you can envision for yourself, there are elements of it that we can believe and feel our way into being as being good. But it's actually this blind sensation, because this is where you fill the void with your visualization and your creative potential and your mind and your belief in yourself and how things could be. But the technology, the state of the world, your own abilities, like this awakening, all of this stuff that's happening within the individual everywhere and within the world. Now, I'm not saying everybody's on the same page. We're all on different pages, but the people who would typically probably tend to find my information, it's like if you're having this shift or noticing it in others and you're on board with all this stuff, then it's like you can't necessarily define what any of that's going to look like, because you should define it first. I hate it when I use words like should. This is just advice through channel, right? Messages. So take it as you will. Should move towards it with feeling and sensation and gravitating towards ways of existing in the vibration and the feelings that you want to possess, and by default kind of radiating it outward so that other people would feel that too, but leaving a lot of details open to like just really transformatively mind-blowing, amazing stuff. Like thinking about the world 5 years from now, your life 5 years from now, like suspend. We can actually engage if we're bold enough, if we're adventuresome enough, if we're not too worried about being called insane enough, then we can suspend massive amounts of disbelief to start to entertain what it means if the energy is moving this fast. And there's a lot of people consciously, working with and anchoring in higher light codes that are superseding some of the rapid, infestations of energy that have always been here. But there's this very intense uptick in how it's like this writhing, dying animal fighting to stay in control, is what I saw in my mind's eye. So it's always about too. It's like the whole thing I talk about with the light and the dark and the sunrise gradually kind of seeing things illuminating, there's a collective sense of horror with a lot of things, and it's very confusing to detangle, and a lot of people don't even touch it and are numb and dissociated to it, and all different kinds of ways to show up in society and global and different kinds of national conversations right now, social, political, all types of conversations right now. But at the end of the day, when you're thinking about all of that is a conversation that is lifelong. That's really a level of engaging, whereas we can also engage at the level of keying into our sensations and our own development, because really the rest of it is the level of distraction, where there's always going to be something to pay attention to instead of realizing that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy with the way that reality is manifested through this outdated way, through so many different things that are manifested in the world. And so it's like a personal inside job that is reflected in the collective job of being like, I can and will give myself permission to visualize some type of future and reality where all of the closed loops of money and hierarchies, or whatever your visions are, but I'm thinking about control structures and systemic oppression and all different kinds of ways of operating society and governance and morality, and I'm not an aspiring cult leader. I just envision, right, an integrated society that's almost ancient in its beautiful understanding and reciprocity and living and loving with Mother Nature and all of nature and elemental energies and magic, really, but also advanced technologies that is somewhat ancient, but it does incorporate our futuristic conception of all types of things like teleportation and all of these different, things in the future that could become accessible to us humans throughout the next era if we collectively manifest more peace. Like, it could be just as simple as that. There's dominant frequencies for hundreds of years in different realities, and the one that we're in has a dominant frequency for quite a while of fear paradigms and controlling matrices. And so, like, the whole power of right now is like, you just have to give yourself permission to think about like a deeply, profoundly positive future, given everything that's going on. Like, what could happen? How could that look? And be okay with releasing a little bit of the control around your own desires right now, because there's so much shakeup. And we can either cling more tightly or we can allow it to be shaken and know that we are protected and supported, as are the ones we pray for and the things that we feed our energy and our mental, either support or worry and fear too. It's all feeding. And so, and obviously when people talk about, this isn't obvious, I guess, for many, but for some it is, when people talk about energy harvesting and stuff, it's through the, the vibration, like, that you're calling upon within yourself, because that's your free will, right? We all choose the contents of our own minds, but what you would find if you soared around like an invisible energy sensor, like a bird flying around looking down at the sim diamonds, right, or the aerial view of these, if there was little frequencies coming out of everybody's head, the contents of people's minds is alarmingly similar, but we don't think that it is, and it's full of things that indicate unwellness. And by default, there's a lot of activities that an alarming amount of people engage with that are symptoms of this unwellness, but there's a lot of unplugging and unlearning that is the remedy for these tight loops of thinking and behavior that could be considered the conditioning and the programming. And I'm thinking about how beautiful it is to simply focus on the present moment and feeling good and self-care and love, because if that's all you have in you, I'm really feeling this a lot. Like, almost, I have a very high tolerance, pain tolerance, but also spiritual endurance through hard times. That, like this could be considered, it's just very intense. It's very intense. And I think a lot of people, like I said in the beginning, are just going through really hard times. There's a lot of people who don't think about the energy or the collective anything or any of this. They don't know that other people are going through hard times too. But I can sense it in the collective energies. I know that there's a lot to be said about this at every level. But when we don't have, it's almost like we're being demanded to think beyond ourselves and about more and questioning things and all these different things. And there's more people involved. There's the news involved and all of this big stuff. And it's like we're being asked to go further when all we seem to be able to do is want to draw within at least and kind of come back to the self, because life can be incredibly overwhelming at times like these. And then we feel torn, and it's something of a spiral, because we do end up, I think, becoming ungrounded and then making less wise and informed and decisions that honor our highest good. And then we're, disappointed in ourselves or upset or whatever. And even if we don't realize it, right? Because every time you go against your intuition and your higher self, you energetically fall less or more into alignment. And alignment just being a person when they are vibrating and encompassing a body, a mind, and spirit, that you're not possessing a lot of blocks. You're able to hold a high vibration and kind of sustain it, not kind of sustain it, but sustain it and radiate it outwards, and protect that energy and work with it, not let entities attach to you, like just a conscious maneuvering of a large aura that's influential in a positive way. We have so much power in caretaking ourselves and our ideas and our peace, and know that everyone else is out there just holding their candle too and trying to kind of get by right now and be okay in the world, really. It's quite simple and sweet. It's not great to think about mass amounts of suffering. Of course, it's abysmal. But it's the other side of the coin is that there is only one answer, right? There's so much pain and fear and loss to sink into. And the worst of it all is the scary potential timelines that people amplify so much. That's very unproductive. But people also kind of love fear on this certain level. And so that's where clickbait comes in, and all of the different programming and horror and all these different things. Also, what is chosen to be filtered on the news about different stories of violence and whatnot. And when we amplify our own understanding of our own connection to the present moment and how that can be enough, if you have a loving, peaceful vibration in the present moment, your flashlight projection to the future, your bulb, your present vibration made of love, the beam that accompanies that by law, by physics, the beam that you project out vibrationally when you are on that vibrational wavelength connecting, it's a congruent future. It's a congruent timeline. It's a congruent way. And it would be beautiful if we could vacuum seal it and never falter, but that is not life, and we are human, and we are not meant to be perfect. That is why we're here, to learn and grow and evolve, but that's why we're all different, and that's why there's so many of us. And that's why we kind of all just tumble and toss like a sea of phytoplankton in the waves of time. It's not that big of a deal, right? We're just specks on the map. But it's also a very big deal. We all have these consciousnesses and these values, and we do feel, hurt when we fall down. It's real, it's meaningless. What's the, in between? There's so much potential for moving through this time and life in general, but particularly now there's a quantum nature to where our ability to, I heard thrust forth, that's very intense, thrust forth in humanity, in time, kind of rounding out the second part of this decade, really, as we move into this. There's going to be so much amazing expansion, I believe. So this is the timeline I'm going to paint. People just kind of being able to set themselves free of so many toxic habits and things and ways of being. And it does start individually, but there's movements and things catch on fast. And I think that a lot of subscription to mass things will disintegrate a little bit, because it won't function the way that it has been scraping people together, driving division between people, moving people closer to cities. I think there's going to be kind of some type of this is us, like, putting on these brakes, and we've been doing it for years, but it's like screeching halt, this huge slow momentum. And so it's like at the one level, there's this kind of, so I'm seeing it as a train, where it's this momentum, all of these different cars buckling into each other, and like a painful collapse, really. And then people inside those train cars, there are casualties along the way. The whole thing is violent and slow-mo, right? There's this disintegration. But then I'm also seeing, imagine like this next level, it exists on a different vibrational frequency. So the way I'm seeing it in my mind's eye is that the metal train, the crashing cars, the slowing down, the right, you can just hear it squealing. That's all of humanity for the past few years, and right now, past few decades, really, just kind of screeching into this metallic clanging that is the breaking down of things, echoing throughout all time and space. Like, we're a big attraction in the universal energies right now. It's pretty exciting. But then, so what I was saying is, like, there's like this rainbow iridescent light matter energy silica train kind of exiting the husk of this crash. And it's doing so at warp speed, but because the other one is doing it in slow-mo and these realities are blending together, the zhooshing away, that's what we're feeling. It's this warp speed of this husk of this, it's like an angel being born out of a dead train car. It's like the old earth, the old paradigm, the metallic, heavy, all this stuff. We're like snake skinning, wriggling out of this dead husk. But if you think about light body and you think about the density of metal and the heaviness of all of that breakdown, like, that's a very detailed thing to think about. Every little mechanism, every little bolt and screw in the subway car coming undone. That's a lot to deconstruct there. And it's a big state change when it comes to matter, to accelerate not only into air and the air that we know, from metal and density and solidness to a different element within our known realm, but this is an interdimensional leap for humanity. It truly is. Not that anything ever isn't. I mean, I think that let's not go down that rabbit hole. I mean, I'm talking about the passage of time and relativity, and like just being able to put this even into words. It's really prone to be misunderstood if I open up even a couple doors about theories and ideas that I have, so we'll just have to save it for a later date. But this beautiful light body train, this one that's speeding away, we have to trust that it's, as we exist in the space that we can hold our own right now and take care of our mental, emotional, physical health and sanity, really, but just, balance. Like, there's certain non-negotiables right now. We have to stop doing certain things that aren't good for us, or being around people that aren't good for us, or, sometimes I think at a time like this, a person could be feeling powerless or lost or bogged down. Even the most optimistic of us, we can definitely fall into these spaces where it's like, it takes a lot. I know personally, it takes a lot for me to stop seeing, and I'm at a point where nothing can bring me down. I really believe that I see the silver lining in anything, but I know that a lot of people aren't at that point, and I'm not implying that there's something to get to or not, but no matter how bad things get, is what I'm trying to say, there's this ability to just pick at least a little bit of a life raft of a positive vibration in order to pivot. And that's what you have to do. And we also underestimate when people talk about, tea or baths or salt scrubs or sitting on the earth or deep breaths and mindfulness. A lot of people are like, no, I'm not into that hippie stuff. I don't do any of that. And it's like, no, I know a lot of people who would listen to me don't feel that way, and they get it. I know that most people get it, but it's about the body and the energy. We can't forget that. It's not just because, like, this would be a nice thing to do. Whether or not your conscious mind benefits from sitting still for 5 minutes, which it does, but if you're agitated the whole time, it's still important to let yourself do it, because it has a physical change to your energy. You will have a different experience if you just take the time to walk outside and breathe for a couple seconds. And we really can the more and more we do these things right now and get honest with ourselves and pick a reconciliation in our own hearts with our own selves, our own inner battles and things that are existing within us and our essences, down to the psyche and the subconscious and the things you see in your dreams and all of it. The inner and the stuff that exists externally and every little run-in or inconvenience or anything that you may experience. We have to try to, as often as we can, come from a place of assumptive reconciliation. And I'm not saying give more than you have to give, but I think a lot of people feel right now like they don't have much to give at all. Not only that, but they're not doing a very good job of giving to themselves or navigating what it is that they've got right in front of them. And that's been a huge part of my messages lately. And I know that sometimes I have this kind of flawdy-daw, happy-go-lucky way about me, but it's because that if that's how I'm being, then that's how I feel. But I don't want to make it ever sound like it's not very challenging to engage the ability to focus on what's in front of us and all these different things. And if you're in that camp and it has been just constant struggle, can't relate to anything around circuitry of the giving loop or Six of Pentacles, like I feel depleted, I'm out of control or something, that's more dire, even if you haven't been able to consciously fully wrap your head around that yet. Like sometimes I think people's situations change or worsen or deteriorate over time. And we don't necessarily have a conscious pulse on that throughout. And a great example of this is relationships. And all of a sudden you wake up with somebody and you're like, how do we get here? Like we're not happy, more often than not, one person or the other. You do sense the deterioration and stuff, but life moves things keep going and it moves too fast and there's no time, right? Or you're both having a semi-conscious understanding of it, but there's, you can't, bridging the gap, right? And we can do this with ourselves or our own habits where we slip into this way of being. And unfortunately, it is what it is. It's not really positive or negative. It's just that we are at collectively, right? Because it's collective, helps you take faith in the fact that you're not the only one going through this and that there's no shame in what's happening because we're part of something larger. I'm not saying you don't have to admit to things, blah, blah. I don't have to make that distinction. I can trust my viewers to be mature and discerning about the way I use words. But if you've listened to me for at least a little while, you know that's my biggest thing is trying to pick my words and be clear and not have to over-explain. But, I'm still working on it. So it's basically like we're just, for better or for worse, and for better, really, we're at these incredibly challenging junctures because we have this renewed ability to absolutely not tolerate certain things. And that's why we're feeling this way, is because it's like, if you don't have any grasp on your irritation or the source of your problems, then there's clearing to do, there's shadow work to do, there's self-examination to do. And a lot of people in that position would probably be finding lots of external reasons for their issues. And it's all a runaround and an attribution maze of trying to connect the dots when the answer always lies within you, your own attachments, your own behavior, your own, methods of being right now. Like, for example, if you feel like you're always being criticized, are you being really critical? There's a map all around you in the form of all your experiences that is perfectly collapsible into the holographic, chamber of mirrors that's within your own constitution and vibrational timelines throughout the day. And you're taking yourself through your experiences. And while this is happening, yes, you are of collective energies and influenced by collective energies. So many energies we are influenced by. And so we're at this huge point where we're experiencing another big request to release and do so in the most honest way that we can, because the only person, there's nothing more to protect or hide here unless we want to be in the cycle that avoidance would lead to at this point. And I don't have to, explain that. It's all about cycles, and there is no right time or right path for anybody But I do believe that if you know better and you don't do better, or if you don't strive to try and possess certain very flawed, convoluted elements of programming where you think that you're not capable of doing or changing something, or you're not interested in realizing, like there's certain levels of stuckness or blocks where it's consciously available for a person to start to tap into their own healing, but maybe they are not in situations that are promoting that or provoking that for whatever reason. And some people don't have to be in certain situations to get into certain paths or things, and it all comes, from within through series of dreams, or, it's a mysterious thing how the clock within each person, when it comes to awakening and spirituality and all of the layers of what makes a person in their own mind and memories and ability to access other realms and past lives and connections and gifting, really, it's a mystery how we're all different in that way. And some people are not really near that camp or that way of experiencing things. And so I talk more so to the people who are kind of enmeshed and immersed in that. And what I'm saying is that if there were people that are enmeshed and immersed in it, and I hope I'm not being too vague, but I just mean like this kind of inevitable awakening thing, if you do have any type of, gifts or psychic stuff, or you're just into it, because I think a lot of people, especially these days, so many people, there's such a new wave of people who are like recently waking up, right? Or like finally being like, yeah, maybe I'm into astrology. I mean, it's crazy. It's so mainstream now, right? It's so mainstream now. For the people who have been in this same way for 15 years, myself included, or however long, I know that my viewership is majority older than me, and majority male. So whatever. I don't know if anybody's like, well, I've been in it for 50 years. I don't know. It's all good. It's all good because the timing of it is very individualized. But the only thing is that when you decide to work with your own free will and your path, you can go around in cycles again if you don't release things. And the lessons, you can't miss them, right? But the way that would manifest is more tower moments, more. We think about the fool's journey through the tarot. It's bright-eyed, and you end with the world and completions. Again, this could be a day, this could be a moment, we flash through cycles all the time, which is why the majority of the readings I do, it's like energy cycle, energy check-in, energy cycle. This is the thing that I strive to be a mouthpiece for, because it's what comes through. Is these shifts in the collective that you can watch in the people around you or on the news. It's more so why I work with the grid stuff and the twisties is because that's the language. It's the bones. But there's always layers, right? When you render, I'm seeing the animation now, the bones, the graphing, without any faces or anything, and then you add in the next layer, the saturation and the shapes, rather. Saturation comes after, and then the motion. Like, we're building up all of this matter and these currents into these very palpable cycles and changes. And so translating it through all sorts of things, whatever you want, the tarot or all these archetypes, all the archetypes. It's up to us to move through these cycles with grace. And a lot of that will come from relaxing, even though the world's kind of in a tense space. Doing physical things with your body around deep breathing or releasing of tension, shoulder rolls, neck rolls, whatever you need, stretching. Light stretching, just a little bit of light stretching to promote your circulation, and a little bit of movement will do a lot for your nervous system. And in the tenseness, not needing to cling tighter and go white knuckle, but know that when you positively think, not think, like to be over analytical, because that can take a heavy toll if we get too mentally stimulated. When the energy's like this, we can get super exhausted. So it's more so, when I say think, envisioning, positivity in a way that doesn't practice attachment around like, well, this is what I'm going to do and I'll fix it this way. Not like that. Just bathing yourself like a sound bath. Bathing yourself in the visions of what it is that could be, and then you can filter through that and take time away and allow it to build in that lightning train car that's going to pull away and take us, because we're on that car. We're not dying with the old world. I do believe that there's a lot of people dying every day on Earth, and I think that it's increasing. And some people are choosing to end. I mean, I always talk about hoping that people don't feel like they're alone, but unfortunately people do feel that way all the time. And a lot of people will choose that it's too much and exit their life by choice. And even then, they're still in the cycle of energy. They're changing state into a different energetic matrix as they pass over from our reality, and they're exiting. But, I believe that their energy is moving into another stage of its transit. And it has gained what it set out to gain from this corporeal husk and this go round. And I am a believer in the fact I'm a believer in the idea that you can choose to come back. But when, say you die and you're with your angels, or just let me talk loosely to make a point, okay? You can choose to come back to Earth, but when you're in that state, it's not as if it's a little room and God's looking at your life and, you get to choose. It's clear at that point. You understand. When you pass over, every piece of meaning, every memory, every all good, all bad, everything washes back into you as if it's all conscious, as if it's all happening. You see the truth. You don't see it like life flashes before your eyes. It's almost like the telepathic nowness of being in the blended space of what people call heaven. When people have near-death experiences, they leave their body, they go to the light, and they're counseled by God or Jesus. I mean, people have all kinds of experiences where they're not in the human physical experience anymore because they've transcended it. And a lot of people are told that they come back because they're not done living as the person that they are. And they also have the unique advantage to come back and talk about what it was like to be out of the body and commune with angels and God and see their own existence from outside of their human mind and ego and understanding and limited perception of reality. Because how can you not have that, right? We don't get to just constantly see into the higher realms of light. That's not what being a human is. But unfortunately, then, we get people who kind of write those people off. But so it's less like, you get to choose or not. Your soul already knows. Your soul knows when your lessons are complete and there's a deeper truth. And a lot of this is taking shape, and that's what we're loading into this next chapter for humanity. It's personal. It's our own excited, or at least positively fueled anticipation, expectation around what could take shape for us, and therefore for the collective, for the earth, for how humans can return to a way of being. And it's not going to be manufactured. It's going to be very natural as the earth heals. And the people who do have Akashic integration happening and so much past life retrieval, both of gifts, of ways of connecting with each other, with old talents, with lost gifts, even languages, and so many things. It's not going to be a struggle to get this way because there's tons of people who are remembering how to walk and move and talk in this way. And by doing it, other people feel it within them. They resonate with that energy because it's also part of their Akashic integration. And then we unravel the layers together and we move forward. And you see that the momentum of it all, how can it not be, a success? How could things topple into the darkness that is the programming that we're inundated with? When you see it for what it is, and this very crucial point for what it is it is easy to feel as if it's going to be okay, because the reason why it's crumbling is because it's no longer the vehicle that humanity needs to take energetically. It's outdated. It's outdated. And that's what I wish to impart this evening.